More clarity at this moment. Please hang up or turn off the switch.
The star exploded. The star exploded. I want you to think about it. The star exploded. You will soon forget that I was here. You will soon forget.
I can read your mind. I can read your mind. Every thought. Every thought. You can't keep it secret.
To say that Tony Oursler's work can be a bit strange to those unaccustomed would be quite the understatement. That's not to say it gets any less strange once you become familiar with the work, but you begin to realize the point of it, the method to the madness. At his core, Tony is a projectionist. Almost all of his pieces fall into this, whether his affinity for public displays led him to this, or if perhaps it was the other way around. I am personally willing to bet the latter. Oursler was born in Manhattan, New York. He attended the California Institute of the Fine Arts and completed his Bachelor's of Arts there. After this, he returned to the West Side to open his studio and begin working, which is where much of his style and flair that we know today started to be developed. Oursler's work largely surrounds social and psychological relationships between individuals and technology. As you'll see, his work can span many different mediums, although, as I previously mentioned, his most notable and popular works tend to be in the realm of projection.
At California Institute for the Arts, I picked up the video camera in 1976. And it's hard to imagine today, but that was the first time I ever played with a video camera. It was like the first year I was in college. I like outdoor art, public art, they call it, because it gets you into a different audience that you might not find in the sanctuary of the gallery or museum. And it also brings it into kind of a vernacular space as well, you know, kind of converts something that exists, you know, people will see the space a little bit differently, the way that it's used, but it also will have a kind of surprise, you know, and everybody loves a surprise. I see people go into a museum, there's this statistic that they look at a painting for 1.5 seconds on average. And of course, with an installation or a moving image, you kind of throw that off. But the beauty of it is to let it unfold. And the trick of art making, I guess, is to make it a comfortable space or an uncomfortable space, a dynamic space, let's call it that.
A notable piece of Tony Oursler's work is A Tear of the Cloud. It is an installation that was put up on Halloween of 2018. The point of the piece is to display the transitionary nature of the river and the city. In terms of describing it, I believe Oursler does it best himself. He refers to it as a visual palimpsest depicting the layering of information associated with unforeseen legacies of the waterway. As I mentioned, Tony Oursler grew up in Manhattan along the Hudson River, a place which went on to influence much of his later work, such as this. The Influence Machine is a piece done by Tony Oursler, made in 2000, and originally staged in New York's Madison Garden. The installation, however, has since gone all around the world.
It even goes in that distant one, like way above the cafeteria. So this one's key. Who wants to work the key one here?
The purpose of the installation is to explore what he calls memetic technology. This is a term borrowed from pharmacology. It's often used to refer to a drug that provokes a state of enlightened consciousness. However, there's a reason I chose Tony Oursler, and more importantly, why I'm talking about the influence machine. In an interview, Tony was quoted as saying, "Whenever you start picking up a video camera and start thinking about the right way to frame me for an interview, there could be close-up shot, medium shot, long shot, and that kind of language. And that was invented by somebody, and it can be broken by somebody."
Looking over here, this just gives you an idea of how I work. This is what's known as a storyboard, and it's another way of visualizing the progress of the movie. So I picked up the video camera and immediately saw that it was a kind of transitional space between what was around me and the physicality around me and what I was making. And as soon as it was sort of drawn into the lens and onto the videotape, I began to see that there was something that happened, a transformation through that system and recording things that was quite interesting. But if someone comes out here, they're looking ahead.
I subscribe to the school of belief that if the camera is the ultimate truth, then editing is the ultimate lie. At its core, editing is to take one thing and make something else out of it, whether that be dailies from a film set or pieces of archival footage from the 70s. Hell, even just a short self-portrait video on a smartphone. What enters the cutting room is never the same thing that leaves it. So perhaps you can see why the idea, the belief that these rules we buy into of language, technical equipment, that there is a quote-unquote correct way to make a film, a correct way to do a transition, a correct way to take one thing and make it into something new and real, is an extremely surreal and yet inspiring idea. Not only that, but at its core, I would make the argument that the influence machine's message, and by extension, Tony Oursler's message, is a message of an editor.
I'm in a park in the University of Stockholm, getting ready to do the influence machine. It's very cool. One of the things I really love about the influence machine is that what you're seeing at the moment may never be seen again. So I use this kind of talking to the dead as a metaphor for these moments where things are open to new ideas, and sometimes they close back down and they open back up, you know. So the internet opens up at a certain point, and then Google locks it down, you know, and this happens time and time again with technology.
To take something, a doll, a fog machine, canvas, hell, even a mattress, to take those things and make them into something that the creator never intended, likely never could have intended, to take a series of innocuous objects and make them into something more than just that, to make them into art. To rephrase Oursler's words, it's like taking something as strictly entertainment-based as a game and repurposing it to create art that speaks to your generation, your community, your whatever it may be. That's what drives me personally. That's what I find to be the most inspiring of video and of Oursler's art. It's something that I can't and haven't been able to find in any other medium. The act of taking historical footage and making a piece on doublethink. Taking clips from various games and making a trailer for one that doesn't exist. The transformative nature is where my passion for editing comes from, and whether it be dailies or hell, even vacation footage, I love every second of editing, and that's why Oursler's message matters as much as it does to me.
So immediately it was kind of breaking through this barrier that separated the subject from the object, the viewer from the medium, the apparatus from the public, and it all sort of broke down in this wonderful way.
It's a message of transformation, recreation, a message that the rules we buy into aren't always working in our favor. That just because a giant like Hollywood has one way of doing things, that doesn't make that the best way, or even the right way. The message that art is fluid, and that regardless of what rules we may put in place, it's all able to be deconstructed as we wish. Art by its very nature can't be controlled, and no one should attempt to. While some pieces of information can be helpful, like terms and labels on our tools and methods, it's not uncommon that we place these unnecessary confines on ourselves. And we should consider what it is that is truly necessary, what it is that is actually true. Are we working with our rules, or are we working because of our rules? It's a message that I think a lot of industries and mediums need to consider, but a medium which is entirely based around transformation, more so than any other. My first question is, do you think that other mediums could take inspiration from Tony Oursler's messages? Of either breaking predefined rules or his message of repurpose, and if so, in what way? My second question is, what are your thoughts on Oursler's message of breaking predefined rules in an industry? Do you think it's practical, and if so, to what extent? My third question is, overall, how did Oursler's work make you feel? Unnerved, inspired, anything?